Welcome to Sassy, Soulful, and Sensitive, a podcast for us introverts, empaths, and highly sensitive people. I'm your host, Cam Swell, and together we are going to explore what it's like to build an empowered life with our sensitivities. We're learning how to trust our intuition and trust our voice. Let's dive in. What's up, buttercups? How you feeling? I'm feeling pretty good today, and I hope that you are doing the same. It's a little cold here in Utah, so I'm looking forward to warmer weather, but we're on third winter. So yeah, that's a thing in Utah. First winter, second winter, third winter. It's all kind of crazy, but I hope you're doing well. So today I want to talk about authentic connection and just navigating social anxiety, because I want you to think about, there's a question that comes up a lot of am I too sensitive when meeting new people? And if you ever find yourself caught in just kind of that whirlwind of overthinking when you're meeting new people, just recognize it's just our minds racing with anxious thoughts about how we are being perceived. Because we, as highly sensitive people, right, we notice subtle facial expressions. We notice tone shifts and body language that so many other people miss, right? And so this hyper awareness leads us down this rabbit hole of social anxiety, right? We are Alice in Wonderland following the white rabbit. But it's just why do we care so much about what other people think of us? Because it's so easy to kind of fall into that trap of wondering if they'll like you or not. And our brains, it's important to know that our brains are wired for connection and wired for acceptance. It's a very tribal, very survival aspect. And as highly sensitive people, rejection especially can be really, really intense. And so oftentimes you might find yourself rehearsing conversations in your head. You might find yourself analyzing every word you say or analyzing every word that the other person says, because you're constantly scanning for signs of approval or disapproval. And so then it's there's all this effort in scanning and then trying to adjust to the other person. And it get this tendency that we have, it comes from a very natural place, right? We process emotional information very deeply, and we genuinely care about forming meaningful connections with people. However, this one-sided focus, what do they think of me, can leave us feeling very drained and very, very insecure. So how can we stop overthinking these social interactions? What I want to offer is flipping the script to your perception of them. So ask yourself, do I like them? Because when you ask that question, it really allows for a really powerful and dynamic shift, because this simple question, it turns everything around. So instead of positioning yourself as someone who is seeking approval from others, you actually become an active participant in that experience because when you're an active participant, you're recognizing that your preferences are valid. You're recognizing that your boundaries are valid, that your values are valid, that you're honoring your own existence. And when asking that question, do I like them? Let me be very, very clear here. It is not about being judgmental. We're not being judgmental of the other person, but it is about recognizing your own worth in that equation. Because when you redirect your attention to authentic connection, authentic reactions, first, you notice how genuinely you feel in someone's presence. Because instead of analyzing how they perceive you, you tune into your own body and your own emotions and your own experience. Do you feel relaxed and at ease, or do you feel tense and guarded? Paying attention to these subtle cues that your body is giving you helps you recognize whether that connection feels natural or if it feels forced. And I can already hear some of you being any social interaction, like especially if you're on like introverted like myself, it's like any social interaction can feel forced. And so when I'm talking about this in this context, it's important to know like, okay, there's going to be effort extended, expanded, exerted. There we go. There's going to be effort exerted in that moment to show up in a social situation. Like that's just part of it. But as the conversation continues, as you notice yourself in that person's presence, that's when you would cue into yourself and see if there's any difference. Because when you're also in that space, like you recognize, like you want to recognize whether their values align with yours. Because rather than trying to mold yourself into someone else in order to fit in, like observe what really matters to the other person and whether that resonates with you and your own beliefs and your own priorities. Because part of genuine connection is like that shared values creates that deeper, more fulfilling relationship that so many of us are trying to get. And like when values and priorities are misaligned, like that can lead to frustration and disconnection. Sometimes in the moment, but especially over time. So another thing is you really become aware of whether an interaction energizes you or depletes you. So after spending time with someone, like ask yourself, like, do I feel uplifted and inspired? Like I want more of that, or do I feel drained and overwhelmed? So after social interaction, like a lot of the time, like you'll feel drained, but you might have like this hopeful feeling of like, oh, that was really good, or oh, I want more of that. That's your clue of a genuine connection. Once you start to notice the patterns of like being energized or hopeful versus drained and overwhelmed, it allows you to prioritize those relationships that leave you hopeful and wanting more, and just like that authentic connection. Like it allows you to prioritize that relationship and nurture that relationship rather than focus on relationships or connections that are just okay, right? You deserve more than just okay. You deserve amazing, fulfilling relationships. So tune into yourself and know what that is, which leads me into my next point of like, when you're in those genuine, authentic connections, like you honor your intuition and what feels right for you. Because if a connection feels deeply right and leaves you wanting more and you just feel at ease, like trust that feeling. And if something feels off, even if it can't be logically explained as to why, like just respect that inner knowing rather than dismissing it. Because I think oftentimes we might feel like something is off, but it's like, oh, we our people pleasing comes into play. We want to give people the benefit of the doubt. We want to be nice. And again, when we're being nice, we're not being kind to ourselves because we're trying to people please. But it's kind of like that's when we're trying to like mold ourselves into something that like just doesn't fit. And so it kind of like leads to that question, like how can I be more authentic around new people? Right? Because as part of like that genuine connection, really we're talking about being authentic to ourselves and like finding that alignment with other people, because we want to be authentic with other people, and just being empathetic people, we want to extend that to other people as well. We want them to be authentic. So we're looking almost for like an authenticity match. And so like really think about embracing your authentic self when you're meeting new people, tuning into your experience, because you have the power to choose your connections and where you spend your time and what relationships you nurture and which ones you don't. Like you have the power to choose your connections. And as highly sensitive people, we often have these rich inner worlds and like these really thoughtful perspectives to share. And like, this is kind of where it's like, yes, your sensitivity, like it isn't a weakness. It is your strength because it allows you to connect so deeply and meaningfully with other people. Like, I think oftentimes we can get stuck in this idea of like, we're looking for fulfilling relationships, and we forget that people being in relationship to us, like that gets to be fulfilling as well. And so being authentic doesn't mean sharing everything at once. It means just showing up as yourself and speaking your truth when it feels honored, and allowing those connections to develop just naturally rather than really trying to force and make it happen. And all of this I think is so fascinating. Like, a little story time here. So in late February, I've been wanting to do this podcast for a while, but in late February, we went to an event in Park City, Utah, that's known as like Gay Ski Week. And people from all over the country, all over the world, come to ski and party it up and meet new people and network and just have a gay old time. And it is not typically my scene to do that. And like, I'm not a big partier. I'm not a big social networking person. I like my one-on-one. I like my small groups. And like, that's kind of where I thrive. But I really wanted to go to this event to put myself in a position to where I was intentionally putting myself in a position to be uncomfortable and really like test my limits and test my boundaries. And so in everything that I'm talking about today, like, it really kind of put everything into perspective because like, I was going and I was meeting with people, and there was this one guy that I like really connected with, and like, I wanted to be friends, but I felt so insecure. And it was just so fascinating to observe. I noticed it myself, like word vomiting and like talking about how insecure I was, and it was just so out of the norm for me. Which, I mean, from a very compassionate place, like, it totally makes sense why I was doing that, because I thrive in the small groups. So I expand my comfort zone and discomfort zones. Like, I'm challenging that in a lot of different ways, but I've never challenged it to this extent. So I totally was like going overboard. And thankfully, this person, this beautiful human, was like taking everything I was saying and doing in stride, and it like didn't bother them. And like, they were so sweet. It was so great. But it was just so fascinating to watch myself in this situation and take all of that in. And like, as you are kind of testing these relationships and going out and like really expanding your comfort zone and challenging your limitations, one question that kind of comes up as you do this, because I hear this with clients all the time, and I ask myself this question as well, of like, how do we know if we're being too accommodating in relationships, right? So we talked about kind of like molding, but how do we know if we're accommodating too much? Because I want you to be focusing on your genuine reactions rather than guessing the other person's reactions, because that's where the magic kind of happens. Because when you focus on your genuine reactions, and like, this requires a lot of attunement in your body. Your body is going to speak a different language than your brain. Your brain's going to want to logic it. So really tuning into your body. But when you do that and you focus on your genuine reactions, like, there becomes such a incredible level of confidence and clarity. And it's magical. And so many highly sensitive people, we just kind of like become chameleons, right? We like taking care of others, and we're good at it because we notice the subtleties, but it also can kind of hurt us sometimes. And so we tend to adapt to whoever we're with, and we lose sight of our own needs and our own desires and our own wants and our own likes. And this results in just us losing track of ourselves and our own preferences in the process of trying to find this connection or trying to adapt to be liked. Again, this is kind of where people pleasing becomes extraordinarily common for us. So here are some warning signs to pay attention to that you might be over accommodating other people. First is you're agreeing with opinions that you don't actually share. This isn't to say that you can't find other opinions interesting, but like, don't just like automatically agree with it, right? Another sign is like ignoring your discomfort in your body, in your mind. You're ignoring the discomfort that you have just to maintain harmony. This is people pleasing 101, right? We're ignoring ourselves to really focus on others. Another sign is the level of exhaustion after social interactions, because it really comes down to like this effort of performance. The efforting that you're putting into performing in a certain way, right? It's like, again, like I just imagine like trying to mold yourself, and like if you have, like I have a performance background, and so if you've ever performed in any kind of capacity on stage, on film, uh, singing to your grandma, like like when you're a kid, like it takes a level of energy to perform, and that can be very, very exhausting. So another sign I have to put in here, because it's so common, is feeling resentful that others don't accommodate you in return. I can't tell you the amount of times I hear people talk about like one-sided friendships and one-sided relationships. And don't get me wrong, like there's absolutely some nuance to this, because notice how you're feeling, but like that feeling of resentment, like ignoring that and just feeling resentful because other people don't accommodate you in the same way that you accommodate them. That can be a very, very slippery slope when we're talking about genuine connection and finding the relationships that we want. So all of this like kind of begs the question, like what should healthy relationships feel like for us as highly sensitive people? Relationships should be mutual. It's not necessarily equally mutual, right? Because we all have different needs and different things, but they should be mutual, where your feelings and your experience, they do matter. They do matter just as much as the other person, even if it looks different or even similar, because sometimes that happens and it's a beautiful thing. But like this reciprocity, if you will, like is essential for us as highly sensitive people, because we do give very generously of our attention and our time and our empathy and emotional support. Like this is just something that we naturally do. These are naturally our sensitive strengths. And so healthy connections with other people typically involve space for processing feelings and experiences, and respect for sensory and emotional boundaries, an appreciation for like our perceptiveness and our depth of processing, and balanced give and take of energy and attention, and acceptance of our sensitivity and our strengths, like just as valuable, right? Like when both people in the relationship honor each other's experience and needs, like this is kind of where we as human beings thrive. Like this is what we're looking for. And when we find it, it's absolutely beautiful. Like they don't have to dim their light. We don't have to dim our light. We don't have to pretend to be someone we're not. And we don't want them to pretend to be someone they're not. Because those friendships, those relationships that are mutually understandable. Like I have a specific friend coming to my mind right in this moment. But anytime I'm making plans with them, they are so compassionate and so understanding if plans need to change because of my sensitivity or how social I've been or needing a break. They are so flexible, and something that they remind me of all the time that I think is so special and I'm so grateful for is they're just like, our friendship isn't fragile. We have different needs, and the friend I'm thinking of, like they're very extroverted. They love the social time. I'm very introverted and I enjoy the social time, but like it's very limited capacity, right? But because they see and honor my sensitivity and my depth and like they just see it and they honor it, and it becomes so beautiful to kind of just have that reflected back to me, because those are typically the things like I'm the one being flexible, I'm the one being understanding, I'm the one being compassionate and empathetic. And to find the relationships that honor that back and reflect that back to me, like it truly is just so beautiful. So all of this goes into this idea of like, how can we really trust our instincts about people? As HSPs, as sensitive souls, like we are very intuitive creatures. It's one of our greatest strengths, and learning how to stand in our truth and just kind of let our light guide us is huge. And so your intuition is one of your greatest assets. Like that's why if you've taken the elemental quiz, there's a section on for every single element that talks about your intuition, because it's really really important. And your ability to notice those subtle cues and integrate these complex emotional information points like gives you really valuable insight into people and situations. And there's this balance, because sometimes it's very intellectual and sometimes it's very emotional and very intuitive, and there's that balance in that. So learning how to trust that intuition, like it takes practice. Very frankly, it takes practice. And honestly, everything that I talk about, it takes practice. Especially if you've been conditioned to doubt yourself and prioritize other people's, and be mindful of other people's perceptions. That kind of like erodes the trust that we have in ourselves and in our intuition. In order to start trusting that, like here are some tips that I offer you that could help in learning to trust your intuition. It's like check in with your body, right? I can't say that enough. Check in with your body for physical responses to people. Even if it's initial gut reactions, it's okay to trust that. Logically, it's like, again, give them the benefit of the doubt, but like it's okay to trust that. And this is where journaling comes in about your first impressions of people and like revisiting them later. Like that can be super, super insightful. And just taking time to reflect on past situations where your intuition proved to be accurate. That awareness is just going to be huge as you do that. And again, this is all about giving yourself permission to honor your feelings, even when you can't immediately explain them. Again, your emotions and your intuition, it speaks a very different language than your logic and your thinking brain, which for highly sensitive people, both are our strength. And this is why it feels like such a battle sometimes. All of this comes into how can we set boundaries without feeling guilty? Because I don't know about you, but sometimes feeling like setting boundaries, even if we know we want to, like it still can be so difficult. And this is one of the biggest challenges that I see for us as highly sensitive people, is setting these boundaries while managing the guilt that kind of follows. And so it's really, really important to remember that boundaries are not walls. They are guidelines that help you preserve energy and engage authentically. I like to think of boundaries as building bridges instead of walls. Like creating a bridge that allows for connection, but it allows for some distance as well. So effective boundary setting, it looks like taking time to respond rather than reacting immediately. Because that can be a red flag in relationships, right? And genuine connection is when people are trying to force a quick response from you. If that's not your jam, like don't fall into it. Like take time to respond rather than reacting immediately, especially if you're a processor. And as highly sensitive people, deep processing, that's one of our things. So if you feel like that really resonates with you, take the time. Another aspect of that is like limiting your exposure to overwhelming environments. And this is not, when I say this, I don't want you to take this as a permission slip to hide or to isolate yourself. But it is about building awareness about the environments and the things that are overwhelming to you, that kind of overstimulate you, so that you can find ways to accommodate and know when to challenge that versus when to lean into it, because there's a lot of nuance there. And be selective about who receives your emotional energy, right? That's part of why everything that I've talked about up to this point is really about gauging your energy and like finding that alignment in values and connection and uh, mutual respect, because you want to know where to put your time, and not every person is going to do that. So don't feel guilty if you have to. Don't feel guilty if you choose to not spend time with certain people. This doesn't mean that you can't be friendly. It doesn't mean that you can't be kind. It just means that they don't get as much as they might want. And that's okay. That's for them to kind of deal with. And you don't even have to blatantly come out and say it. Like, I don't want to spend a lot of time with you. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it's really about managing yourself in order to create the connection and create more of what you want. Because when you do that, that's what allows you to communicate your needs clearly without over explaining, like I did to my new friend at Gay Ski Week. When you honor your boundaries, you truly teach others how to treat you. But it starts with how you treat yourself. This is how we create connections and create space for those connections that truly, truly nourish us. So being highly sensitive in a world that feels like our values, the world just values like thick skin, right? And like quick connections and just a lot of people, like that can be challenging. And so this again is really, really important to notice, like your sensitivity isn't a flaw. It just takes some awareness. And even for the people that are not highly sensitive, guess what? Them navigating the world and navigating certain challenges, the challenges might be a little bit different, but they still have to do the same thing. They still have to build awareness and figure out what works for them. Like a lot of what I'm talking about, yes, I'm gearing towards highly sensitive people, but the concepts, the overall arcing, like through lines of all of this, it's applicable to everybody. So yes, we're highly sensitive people, but we are not these overly special, super incredibly unique outside of the human experience individuals. This is why it's so important to recognize the sensitivity isn't the flaw. Just this is kind of what we're dealing with, and it comes with some extraordinary gifts. There's so much richness and depth in what we do, and yes, that piece is unique to us, but like we're all just humans. Like creating genuine connection, it's not like you can only be friends or be in relationship to other highly sensitive people. Think about how much that would rob you almost of the human experience and healthy challenges and expanding your comfort zone. There's this fine balance between moving into our growth zone and staying in our comfort zone. It's that balance. It's a beautiful nuance. And so really I offer like shift your focus from seeking approval to just honoring your authentic responses, right? Like as you do that, that's where you are going to start to find that balance and figure out what those nuances are for yourself. Because as you do that, like it's what creates that foundation for meaningful connections. The connections that energize you rather than deplete you. Because I can't say this enough, like you 100% deserve relationships that you can be like your full, sensitive, authentic, genuine, sparkling, magical self. Like you just deserve that. It's not something that you need to work really hard for. It's just something that you flat out deserve. You should be appreciated for exactly who you are. Period. The end. That is just part of being human and part of being you. We all deserve that. Every human deserves that. Again, this is where the people pleasing for a lot of people comes into play, because it's like, oh, it's not nice if I'm not appreciating someone. Okay. This is again that balance of, are you trying to appreciate someone by depreciating yourself? Are you respecting other people's needs over your own? We're not going to be a perfect match for everybody, so we have to stop thinking that we should be. Right? There's that expectation that we have of ourselves. that just like that's kind of what destroys us and really takes away from us living this full, rich life full of these authentic connections and beautiful humans. Does it take effort to find them? Absolutely. But when you find them, it's so good. It is delicious. It is such a delicious experience. All right, my friend, that is all I have for you today. Thank you for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. And as always, remember, shining bright gives others permission to shine as well. Take care. Hey, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you want to learn how to tap into the powerful force of nature you know exists within you, head on over to coachwithcam.com and take the Elemental Energy Type quiz. You'll discover more about how your sensitivity isn't a weakness, but rather the place where your strengths come from. And if you enjoyed the show, make sure to follow, rate, and review it on your favorite podcast platform and share it with a friend or family member who you want to connect with on a deeper level. You'll be helping other sensitive folks like us find and join our amazing community. So let's connect and support each other on this incredible journey.